After we moved in, his parents insisted on a spare key, just to check in, they said. Lucas gave it to them without blinking. I didn't argue. I just smiled. 1 week later, they barged in uninvited. Only to find themselves locked inside, with a stranger they never should have underestimated. When my husband Lucas and I moved into our new home in Savannah, Georgia, I genuinely believed we were stepping into a new chapter, a peaceful, private life together. We'd been married for nearly a year, and this cozy two-story brick house on a quiet, tree-lined street felt like the kind of place where dreams were meant to grow. A place for Sunday morning pancakes, lazy afternoon reading, and maybe someday, the pitter-patter of little feet. But that dream started to crack the moment his parents came into the picture. Lucas's parents, Harold and Denise, had always hovered a little too close for comfort. When we were still dating, I'd noticed odd behaviors, his mom calling 4, sometimes 5 times a day to ask what he'd eaten, whether he was wearing enough layers in winter. His dad, a stern, tight-lipped man, seemed to believe it was his sacred duty to inspect Lucas's life choices, from what he wore to who he dated. I had hoped, naively, that once we got married and had a home of our own, they would naturally learn to step back. After all, that's what parents usually do, right? Trust their grown children to build lives of their own? I was wrong. So wrong. We had barely finished unloading the last box when Harold and Denise rolled up in their SUV, unannounced. No text, no call, no warning, just the unmistakable rumble of their tires on our gravel driveway. Lucas and I were still arranging furniture in the living room when the doorbell rang. I went to answer it, expecting maybe a neighbor or a delivery. Instead, Denise brushed past me the moment the door opened, her sharp eyes scanning the space like a property manager doing an inspection. "Oh, it's nice," she said with a lukewarm smile, as though she'd been expecting more. She handed me a bottle of wine, cheap, generic, still with the grocery store sticker on it, then turned back to Lucas without another word. Harold stepped in next, holding a manila folder. "Thought I'd bring you some home maintenance checklists," he said gruffly, placing the packet on the kitchen counter like it was a sacred text. "You'll need to keep up on air filters, roof gutters, pest control." I bit my tongue and smiled politely, but I could feel irritation building like pressure behind my eyes. Then came the moment that really sealed it. Denise sat down on our brand-new cream-colored sofa, crossed her legs, and looked directly at me. "So," she said, "when do we get our copy of the key?" I blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, what?" Harold chuckled from behind her. "Oh come on, sweetheart. You know we'll need a key. Just in case." "In case of what?" I asked, eyebrows raised. Denise didn't miss a beat. "Emergencies. Or if we need to check in. Water the plants. Make sure everything's clean and in order. That sort of thing." I turned to Lucas, praying he would shut this down, that he would say something, anything, that would put a boundary in place. Instead, he nodded, as if this was the most reasonable thing in the world. "Yeah, I guess that makes sense." And then, right there in front of me, he handed them a freshly copied set of keys to our home. I felt every ounce of composure in my body screaming to explode, to yell, to tell them how completely unacceptable that was. But I didn't. I smiled, sweetly, too sweetly, and said, "Of course. You're absolutely right." Because that's when I knew. This wasn't going to stop unless I made it stop. Not with logic. Not with pleading. I had seen the truth in Lucas's silence, in the way Harold and Denise operated like they had permanent backstage passes to our lives. This wasn't about family. This was about control. And so, I began to plan. I don't think Lucas noticed the change in me right away. I still made him coffee every morning. I still listened to him talk about work and laughed at his dumb impressions. I even laughed when Denise called, again, to remind him to take his vitamins. But behind the soft smiles and warm dinners, I was sharpening my knives. They thought they'd won. That I'd rolled over. But I had spent years being polite, accommodating, brushing off microaggressions with grace. And now I realized something cruel and true. Politeness gets you run over when you're up against people who only understand power. So I stopped playing by their rules. And I started making my own. The plan came together over quiet nights and restless thoughts. I couldn't sleep, not with the knowledge that 2 people I didn't trust could walk into our home at any time. so I lay awake and envisioned how I'd take that power back. Step 1, the lock. I installed it myself, late one evening while Lucas was working late. A heavy-duty, hotel-style security lock, the kind that could only be bolted from inside. It gleamed against the wood like a promise. Step 2, the camera. Motion activated, discreet, synced to my phone. I positioned it just behind a bookshelf, angled perfectly to capture the front entrance and living room. Every movement would send me a notification. Every secret moment? Mine to see. Step 3, Uncle Jay. Uncle Jay wasn't really my uncle by blood, but he was the closest thing I had to family who understood survival. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a voice like gravel and tattoos that told stories he'd never speak aloud. He used to ride with a motorcycle club back in the 90s. Now, he ran a local barbershop and kept a low profile. But more importantly, he was loyal. To me. I called him on a Wednesday. "Jay," I said, "I need a favor." He didn't ask why. Just said, "I'm in." We signed the paperwork the next day. I sublet the house to him, legally, temporarily, completely above board. Our landlord knew and approved. Because if you were going to trap a wolf, you had to make sure the cage was airtight. Exactly a week after the key exchange, it happened. My phone buzzed at 10:47 a.m., motion detected, living room. My hands trembled as I opened the app, not from fear, but something more electric. Anticipation. Rage held in a velvet-gloved fist. There they were. Harold, stomping through the kitchen like he owned the damn place, opening cabinets, muttering to himself. Denise, fluffing the couch pillows and smoothing the throw blanket like some twisted version of Martha Stewart. Then she did it. She picked up my laundry basket and started folding. That broke me. Not because she touched my things. Not even because of the invasion. But because of what it meant. Folding my laundry was her way of saying, "You're still the child here. You're not capable. This is my son, my house, my rules." My teeth clenched so tightly it hurt. But I didn't move. I waited. And then, the moment I'd been craving for days came. They tried to leave. Harold walked to the door, turned the knob, and nothing. He tried again. Still nothing. Denise joined him, confusion turning to worry. Then they saw it, the lock. The one I had installed. The one they couldn't touch. "What the hell is this?" Harold barked, rattling the door. And then came the piece de resistance. The door to the basement opened. And Uncle Jay walked out. 6'3", bald, tattooed, and very much not the welcome committee. He cracked his knuckles as he stepped into view. Well, he rumbled, his voice deep and deliberate, "What do we have here?" Denise let out a startled yelp, clutching Harold's arm like he could protect her. Harold, pale but furious, squared his shoulders. "What the hell are you doing in our house?" Jay raised a brow. "Our house?" He chuckled and pulled a key from his pocket. "Nah. I live here. Got the paperwork to prove it." And he did. Lease agreement. Notarized. Signed and sealed. Watching Harold's face twist as he read that document, it was like watching a dam crack from the inside. Denise looked like she might faint. Jay leaned against the wall, arms crossed, completely calm. "You're lying," Harold spat. Jay didn't flinch. "You walked into someone else's residence, uninvited." Harold turned to Denise. "Call Lucas." And just like that, my phone rang. I answered. Lucas's voice came through, tight with panic. "What the hell is going on?" I smiled, voice smooth as silk. "I don't know, Lucas. Maybe ask your parents." I didn't rush home. I took my time, letting them stew in their discomfort. Letting the weight of what they'd done settle into their bones. When I finally walked through the front door, the air was thick with tension, so heavy I could almost taste it. Denise was perched on the edge of the couch, arms crossed so tightly her knuckles turned white. Harold stood near the locked door, his face a deep, mottled red, like a storm cloud seconds before it breaks. "Uncle Jay?" He was in the kitchen, sipping water from a glass like nothing about this was strange. Like he belonged here. Because for now, he did. "Hey babe," I said sweetly, tossing my purse on the counter like this was any other day. Lucas's eyes darted from his parents to Uncle Jay to me. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice low, nervous. Harold's voice cut through the room, sharp and accusing. "This," he growled, waving the lease agreement in the air like a white flag he'd turned into a weapon, "is a load of crap." I tilted my head. "Funny." The landlord didn't think so. Denise stood abruptly. The couch groaned under the sudden shift. "You think this is funny?" she hissed. "This little game you're playing? You've gone too far." I folded my arms. "Too far? Like walking into our home without permission? Like snooping through our drawers and folding my underwear?" Harold's hand clenched into a tight fist. "We have a key." Uncle Jay snorted. "Yeah. And how'd that work out for you?" I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. Lucas looked stunned. He was starting to realize this wasn't just a disagreement. This was a battle line, and I had drawn it in permanent ink. Denise turned on him. "Lucas," she pleaded, grabbing his hand, her voice trembling, soaked in betrayal, "did you know about this? Did you let her do this?" He hesitated. 1 second too long. Her eyes widened. "You did," she breathed. "You let her humiliate us like this?" Lucas looked down, ashamed. "Mom." But Harold had had enough. "I want the key back," he barked. "Now." I didn't even blink. "No." His nostrils flared. "We're your family. We have a right to be here." I laughed. Really laughed. "Are you hearing yourself? You don't have any rights here. You don't live here. You don't pay the bills. You don't get to treat my home like your kingdom." Harold stepped toward me, eyes dark with something ugly. "You're making a big mistake." Uncle Jay, quiet until now, chuckled from the kitchen. "Oh, I really want to see how this plays out." Harold turned on him. "You shut your damn mouth." Jay grinned, that dangerous kind of grin that made grown men rethink their threats. "I don't think I will." Denise clutched Harold's arm, her voice trembling. "Let's just go." But he wouldn't move. He stared at me, his voice low, venomous. "You're going to regret this." I met his gaze head-on. Calm. Cold. Unflinching. "No, Harold," I said. "You're the one who's going to regret this." That night, the house was quiet. Lucas and I sat on the couch in silence. No TV. No music. Just the sound of two people sitting on the edge of something irreversible. Finally, he spoke. "They're going to hate you now." I shrugged. "Probably." He exhaled, face weary. "I really screwed up, didn't I?" I looked at him, not with anger, but with something heavier. "You gave them a key to our house, Lucas. Without even asking me." He winced. "Yeah. I didn't think it would get like this." I stared at him. "You really think they would have stopped at just watering plants?" He didn't answer. I sighed. "We're changing the locks tomorrow." He nodded slowly. "Okay." For a few days, it was quiet. No calls. No texts. I started to wonder if they had finally gotten the message. That maybe, just maybe, they had decided to retreat, lick their wounds, and let us live our lives. But peace doesn't come easy when you're dealing with people who see boundaries as insults. On Friday morning, my phone rang. It was our landlord. "Hey," he said, voice tight, uneasy. "I just got off a very strange call." "From people claiming to be your in-laws?" My stomach dropped. "What did they say?" "They wanted to know if it was possible to terminate your lease early," he said. "They offered to pay off the remainder of the term in full, if I'd agree to rent the house to them instead." I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles turning white. Eviction. They tried to evict us from our own home. And I knew, in that instant, that this wasn't over. This was war. I didn't tell Lucas right away. Not because I was hiding anything from him, but because I needed to be sure. Sure that I was the one steering the ship, and not waiting for him to find the courage to hold the wheel. He was just beginning to see the cracks in his parents' masks. I didn't want to risk him patching them up out of guilt or loyalty. So I drove. Alone. Straight to Harold and Denise's house. When Denise opened the door, her face flickered, just for a moment, with surprise. She was probably expecting Lucas. Instead, she got me. "Oh," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We weren't expecting you." I returned the smile, sharp as broken glass. "I figured. Can I come in?" She hesitated. Then stepped aside. Mistake number 1. Harold was in the living room, stretched out on his recliner like a king who'd conquered something he didn't yet own. He barely looked up. "What do you want?" he muttered. I sat across from him, legs crossed, voice calm. "I know what you did." Denise stiffened. "What do you mean?" I turned to Harold. "You tried to have us evicted." He straightened. "Not with guilt. With challenge." "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. "Should I put the landlord on speaker?" Silence. Denise wrung her hands together, her nerves unraveling. "Harold?" He had the audacity to smirk. "All right," he said, leaning forward. "Let's say we did." "Harold." Denise gasped, scandalized. He waved her off. "She's not stupid. She already knows." I felt that cold fury again, clean and purposeful. "So what was the plan?" I asked. "Kick us out, take over the lease, what then? Keep Lucas here like a trained dog you can call and leash whenever you want?" Denise's eyes brimmed with fake offense. "We just wanted to be closer to our son." I laughed. Bitter and hollow. "Closer? No. You wanted control. And you didn't care who you had to hurt to get it." Harold's smile slipped. "You're being dramatic." I stood. "No," I said, my voice low and slow, the kind that makes people lean in even when they don't want to. "I'm being done. Done pretending you're harmless. Done pretending this is family. Done letting you infect our life with your poison." He stood too, towering over me, fists clenched. "If you ever talk to me like that again." I stepped closer, toe to toe. "If you ever pull something like this again, I will bury you in paperwork so deep, you'll need a legal archaeologist to dig you out. Are we clear?" Denise's face went ghost white. "Are you threatening us?" I smiled. "Oh, Denise. I haven't even started." And then I walked out. I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the end of it. I should have known better. A few days later, we started noticing strange things around the house. Nothing huge, at first. A package missing. Trash bins knocked over. Minor things that felt wrong. Then one night, Lucas and I were curled up watching a movie when we heard it. A scraping sound outside. Lucas muted the TV. "Did you hear that?" I nodded. My pulse picked up. We both walked to the front door. Slowly, silently. Lucas peeked through the peephole, then froze. "What?" I whispered. His voice was ice. "It's my dad. He's on the porch." My stomach dropped. I looked through the peephole and there he was, Harold, standing just outside, holding something small and metallic. A key. Our old key. He jammed it into the lock. Turned. Nothing. We'd changed the locks. Harold banged on the door. "Open the damn door." We didn't move. Again. Louder. Fist slamming against the wood. "I know you're in there." I pulled out my phone and hit record. Lucas stood stiff beside me, face pale. "Harold," I said, loud enough for him to hear through the door, "you need to leave." "This is my son's house," he bellowed. "I have a right to be here." "No," I said. "You don't." From the shadows at the side of the house came a soft voice. "Lucas, sweetheart, just open the door so we can talk." Denise. Standing near the window, hands clasped like a mother in mourning. Lucas's breath trembled. "Dad," he said, just above a whisper, "you need to go." Harold's rage exploded. "You are making a huge mistake." And then, click. The backyard motion lights flipped on. I turned to the window. A figure. In the yard. I didn't wait. I dialed 911. By the time the red and blue lights flashed across our windows, Harold was still ranting. But the moment he saw the officer step out of the car, his demeanor shifted. "This is a misunderstanding," he said quickly, hands up, face calm. "This is my son's house." The officer turned to Lucas. "Sir, do you know these people?" Lucas hesitated for half a second. Then he exhaled. "They're my parents," he said. "And they're trespassing." Denise gasped. Harold's face twisted, disbelief and betrayal all tangled up. Lucas didn't look at them. He looked at the officer. "They don't live here," he said. "They don't have a key. They need to leave." The officer nodded. "Sir, ma'am, I'm going to ask you to step away from the property." Harold clenched his jaw, took a step closer. "You think you're making the right choice," he said, voice dripping with venom. Lucas didn't reply. Harold leaned in. "One day, you'll realize she took everything from you." Denise began to cry. "Lucas's baby, don't let her do this to us." But Lucas stared straight ahead. "She didn't do anything," he said. "You did." Harold's words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had finally burned itself out. "You're not my son." And then, he walked away. Denise paused for a second longer, face streaked with tears, torn between following her husband and collapsing on our doorstep. But in the end, she went too. Neither of them looked back. The officers waited until they turned the corner out of our neighborhood before they turned to us. "You want to press charges?" one of them asked. Lucas shook his head. "No," he said. His voice was flat. Empty. And just like that, the police left, their flashing lights fading into the night. Silence returned, too loud at first. Like the ringing in your ears after a concert. Our house was quiet, but everything felt heavy, like the echo of what had just happened hadn't fully faded yet. Lucas sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. I didn't speak. I didn't reach for him. I just sat there, beside him, letting him feel it all, grief, guilt, clarity. Letting it settle into him not like a wound, but like truth. After a while, he whispered, "They hate me now." I swallowed hard. "Maybe." He shook his head. "No. They do. My dad, he meant what he said." "I know," I replied. He looked at me then, really looked. "I didn't lie to him." "No," I said softly. "You didn't." His hands balled into fists. His breath hitched. "I don't know how to feel." I placed a hand gently on his arm. He didn't pull away. "I know," I whispered. "But you're allowed to feel it. All of it." Silence again. Then, with the same weight of truth he'd spoken at the door, he said, "I think I always knew this was coming." I didn't respond. Because deep down, I think I did too. Days passed. No calls. No texts. No surprise visits. Then, one morning, Lucas opened his laptop and went pale. "What is it?" I asked. He turned the screen to me. At the top of the email were 6 bold words that made my stomach turn. "Cease and desist order, George and Denise Turner." They were threatening legal action. Claiming that we were alienating them from their son. That we had disrupted the natural flow of familial communication. That we had emotionally manipulated Lucas into cutting off loving parents. Lucas read the email aloud, his voice barely audible, then leaned back in his chair and laughed, a dry, hollow sound. "They're desperate," he said. I tilted my head. "You think?" He nodded. "Yeah." And then, for the first time in weeks, he reached for my hand. That was the moment I knew we'd won. We replied to the email with one sentence. "Do not contact us again." Then we blocked them, on phones, email, social media. We even warned the landlord about further interference. And just like that, the wall was built. A boundary that could not be crossed. But they tried. They always tried. An anonymous email from a burner account. A handwritten letter left in our mailbox. A Christmas card addressed Lucas and baby girl that arrived in March. But we didn't bite. every attempt faded a little more than the last. And slowly, quietly, the silence returned, not the heavy kind this time, but the kind that feels like a warm blanket, a soft room with no shouting, no slammed doors, no guilt-wrapped expectations. It took Lucas time to untangle the years of programming, the obedience, the guilt, the belief that love was something you had to earn. Some nights were harder than others. Sometimes he'd sit on the porch alone, staring into the darkness, and I'd know exactly what he was remembering. But healing is never loud. It's in the stillness. The small moments. One night, we were sitting on the porch together, the street lamp flickering gently over our little corner of the world. Lucas was quiet for a long time, then he looked over at me and said, "I feel free." I squeezed his hand. "You are." He let out a long breath, like he was finally exhaling a lifetime of holding it in. Then, smiling for the first time in what felt like forever, he said, "So, can we invite Uncle Jay over? I think he deserves a beer." I laughed. Absolutely. And for the first time in a long time, we were okay. Some people say family is forever. But the truth is, real family doesn't chain you. Real family doesn't ask you to lose yourself to keep them comfortable. Sometimes, the bravest thing, the strongest thing, you can do, is walk away.